Good day, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day you're watching this, you have just turned on the next segment in Mindful Health Alternatives. Hi, I'm Darlene Young from Arlington, and I'm also the outreach coordinator here at CAT TV. And with me today is Robert Rock Kaufman, who's going to talk to us about stone tipping or rock balancing. The goal of this series is to introduce you to a less stressful lifestyle through several different methods. Our guest today, Robert Rock Kaufman, will introduce you to everything you always wanted to know about the art of rock balancing. It's a great tool for meditation or balancing of oneself, or just a great recreational tool. Rock has brought several different pictures for us to look at today. He also is an author of a book that can be found on
Blurb.
Okay, and you can order the book. It's called Stone Tipping Year 1, Second Edition, and you can go to Blurb and order it if you want to find out more about stone balancing, rock balancing. I'd like to start off with welcoming Rock to the program today. Thank you for coming and to share this with us.
It's my pleasure, really.
Good. And I'd like to start off showing you a picture that Rock brought with him. And this is the picture that you had shown us when you were here a couple weeks ago. And let me read what he's written on the back of this. What do you call that? Shortly after beginning my practice of setting rocks to balance in public places, I was besieged with the question, what do you call that? My quick response is always the same, balancing rocks. However, it set me on the quest to find names for this practice. Following is a list of what I found. The first name that came up was Upala Yoga. In Sanskrit, it means rock union. Then came, I'm going to need some help with this one, Rock.
Inukshuk construction.
Okay, which is from the Inuit structures marking their native territory across the Arctic and subarctic North America. Similar to that was cairn building. The word cairn originated in the Scottish Gaelic language and is applied to landmark structures that are found all over the world. Terms that speak to it being an art form include land art, performance art, and rock art. I gathered these terms from the various artists who engage in this practice. Another art term that introduces a spiritual element is awareness art. Heading toward the dimension, I also came across petromancy and geomancy. The root petro means rock and geo means earth, while the suffix mancer means both someone who handles a thing but also reads deeper meaning into that element than those obviously present on its surface. And lastly is a term a dear friend applies to this work, stone tipping. So without further ado, I'll turn the program over to Rock, and he's going to tell you about some of his experiences and show us some more pictures that he's brought in. And also we have a short DVD which we will be playing for you as well. Rock?
Thank you, Darlene.
You're welcome.
For this presentation, I'd like to start with preface. I've been seeking for the longest time, probably 35 years, a means, a practice to meditate, to center, to focus, and have tried many different means or ways to do this. And a lot of them I found very difficult to sustain. What I mean by sustain is develop a practice that I can stay with and you know, achieve the work and keep doing it. So a long history of exploring and, you know, trying out various sort of things. And I believe this art form here, or meditation form, whatever you want to call it, came to me, I believe, as an amazing gift. I first was introduced to this in August 2009. And while I was on the beach visiting my family in Toronto, daughter and grandkids, And we were walking down me and my granddaughter, who was 5 years old at the time, were walking down the beach and came across about a dozen of these things set up. Incredible balances that were pretty awe-inspiring. And there was two other guys there who were kind of looking at these and kind of bending over and how's that done, and imagining there was rods put through it or something like that, or some special glue used.
Mm-hmm.
And my granddaughter knocked one over by accident. Mm-hmm. And so I picked it back up. It was the size of this or something like that. I picked it back up and tried to set it up where I thought it came from, and was not successful at all. It was kind of a struggle, and I just wasn't getting it done. And this Asian woman about my age came over, nudged me aside, and took the rock from me and pointed to the spot she was going to set it, and used a foreign name. I don't know what name, but it might have been Japanese name or something like that. And what it was a little dimple in the rock, in the base rock. There was a small little dimple that was could be a cradle, something to hold, but a very small. And she just set the rock in there, and I just observed her doing this little dance with the rock, and then left it, and it was done.
And it balanced
and it
by
balanced.
itself?
It was balanced.
Good.
And what captivated me about this is I talked to her afterwards, and she was setting these up to take a photo for a cover of a book she was publishing. Unfortunately, I did not get her name. I haven't been able to find her book or story since then. But I went away with this sense of, wow, I just witnessed something pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And that was in August, and then I was living in Ithaca, New York at the time. I came back home and got into winter stuff and kind of remembered this event, but didn't pursue it anymore until the following year, March 2010. That I went back up to visit my family, and it was a nice day, a March day, but it was quite warm. And we walked back down to the beach, and then I noticed all the rocks laying around from the year before.
Right.
And I just set myself to work. I said, I'm going to try this, and I started playing with them and applying the principle that she showed me of setting the rock into a little cradle.
Right.
And achieved some works. And the convincer was when I finished, I looked over and noticed my granddaughter sitting with a whole bunch of little piles of rocks around her. And I saw her doing it. I said, okay, I'm going to do this. That was this kicker, just, seeing how she picked it up, just, like that. So at that moment, I made a decision to conduct this as a practice. And do it every day. I just made a decision to do that. I'm going to try this every day, and went out from there. And for some reason, I don't know where this came from, but my practice became to go out and set up 5 structures in a day, at a time. And that's what I started doing.
Now, when you set up these 5 structures a day, are they all the same size? Are they similar, the way you stack the rocks, or are they all different?
I believe, and others that I've met who do this believe, that the rocks determine what the structure is going to look like.
Really? Okay.
I don't go out with any preconceived notion of what I'm going to do. I just, some of the people say the rocks talk to me.
Okay.
And I believe, why did I pick up that rock?
Right, right.
And I also noticed, from my life and other people, that on walks very often a rock calls us because we pick it up. I know so many people have at their house a rock, a stone, a pebble, something that so there is some kind of a connection, I believe, between the rocks, and the ones that speak to me is the one I pick up, and then I go find another one. So that the practice, it kind of involves a communication of sorts with the rocks to choose, and how they fit together and how they balance is, I can't alter that.
No.
Where I just have to find the spot where they fit together.
Right.
And so that was the beginning of it, and pretty quickly I had a digital camera, an early one that I took with me just to capture photos of the work I was doing as evidence I guess, of what I was doing, because I would leave them and they would return to nature eventually.
Right.
And that was another part of this. When I first started doing this, and I would kind of do it privately, I would head off and in public places, but when no one was around.
Okay.
And after a couple weeks of doing this, I started to be bothered by, after I left, I said, I wonder if that's safe.
Yeah.
If it's set up in such a way that a small animal or a small kid can walk up to it and have it topple over and hurt them. And that concerned me. So I would go back and dismantle this stuff. And then I decided to find safe places to do this, that if I left them, they wouldn't be. That's why lake shores and riverbeds became my medium to do this.
Okay. And it's also important to make sure that somebody knows where you are when you go to do these, so that, if you should slip or fall or something like that, somebody would come to get you. I mean, if you're going to an isolated spot, that might not be so good either,
Darlene, I've never thought of that.
Oh.
I don't think of my own safety doing this. I've lost 3 cameras.
Oh.
I haven't damaged myself too much.
Okay.
The bloody finger once, but nothing serious.
Okay.
But I just haven't thought. And usually, as it turned out, there'd usually be witnesses after I started developing into a practice and go into areas that there's usually people in attendance.
Okay, good.
And so then it started, I started developing some connections. I found, one of the things early on I found is that adults kind of were a little wary of approaching me and saying, what do you, ask me what I'm doing. They would stay sort of back and watch, but didn't want to interrupt me. I don't know if they thought they were witnessing some weird practice of some sort, or some strange religion or rites.
Well, maybe they were in awe too, because the first time you and I spoke, and you showed me some of these pictures, and after we spoke and you had left, I went on the internet to look up some more people that were doing this. And I kept saying to myself, I know it's to get you into balance and it's a good meditation thing. But my first thought was, I get all these rocks, start to stack them, and wouldn't be able to. And then I'd be more stressed than what I was in the beginning. And then to have them, like you said, find a dimple to put them in, or a little crevice to, balance them. And I'm thinking, there's no super glue, there's no rods, there's nothing except the rock in you to balance it.
Yep. And I didn't, when I first started doing this, I called it a practice, but I wasn't really looking at it as to what I could get out of it or what was available. I just started doing it. And the journey it's taken me on, I feel I've really tapped into something. And what I call it is a result of sticking with a practice that I have a passion for. And it could be music, it could be art, it could be anything, but I just, following it and sustaining it and carrying it out has brought me into connection with some kind of energy that's just taken me on a ride. And as an example, as I started doing this, connections I started making. This young man came up and asked me, he was a film student, wanted to do a documentary of me for his film class. I said, certainly.
Okay.
And that's where
the DVD
came from. And I think he did an incredible job. And it was unbidden. I mean, it just approached me and I accepted it. And we went out. And as a little sidelight, because he had done this and took it to Brown University Film Festival in 2010 and entered it into there, and because it was entered in there, IMDb.com, International Movie Database, picked it up because it was a film.
Right.
And now if you look on their website, one rock at a time, I'm now a rock star.
Oh, good.
So I mean, it's a little thing, but it's just things like that that
Sure.
have carried me along. And I started by working with kids doing this. I found kids weren't hesitant to approach.
Mm-hmm.
Adults might be a little standoffish and wait, but kids would walk right up and say, "How do you do that?" So I would show them,
Mm-hmm.
and they pick it up pretty quickly. I mean, when you show them the little spots that
Mm-hmm.
exist on the surface of any rock, has got some little area that will hold something else,
Right.
and they go to work.
Okay.
And then so I started working with kids a lot, and then their adults would kind of get into the
Get it,
picture
come in and get
and join
involved.
with them, and I'd
Mm-hmm.
see parents and kids working together. And from that, I started getting invited into schools
Mm-hmm.
to give a demonstration in a classroom
Good.
and bring a couple of bags of rocks, all I could manage to carry, and go into a school. And
Mm-hmm.
kids pick it up pretty quickly. They have a knack for playing with stone.
Good. Good.
And at the end, uh, after a year anniversary of doing this, because March 16th, 2010 is when I started. So
Okay.
2011 comes up and March passes, I've got a first year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And that book is just the story of my first year, and then others expanded since then.
Okay.
August 2011, I was invited to go over to Italy to exhibit photographs in a international photo exhibition of rock balance.
Wow. Okay.
And I only had 2 weeks notice on this, so I couldn't make that trip.
Oh, that was unfortunate.
Yeah, but I got sparked by that, and I said, well, I can't afford to go right now, but in September I searched online and found an affordable flight to Rome
Okay.
in March of 2012.
Okay. The following year, basically.
So,
Yeah.
and my plan was, I knew several people lived on the Adriatic coast that were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal was to fly to Rome, take a train across Italy, and just work my way down the shoreline, balancing rocks, and hopefully meet some of these people.
And how did it work out?
Incredible.
Really?
How it started, I searched online and found a Facebook group, Pietra in Equilibrio, which is, Pietra is Italian for stone,
Right.
in balance, in equilibrio.
Okay.
And it's a pretty international site for stone balancers to produce pictures. So I met some folks through there.
Uh-huh.
And a couple of them were going to organize an international gathering in April of 2012. Now, I already had a ticket for March.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I started helping them,
Mm-hmm.
mostly doing some translation services, because it was a worldwide thing, and they were writing it in Italian.
Okay.
And I used Google Translate, and then got a rough English version, and then
Mm-hmm.
cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And then part of that, I wrote the manifesto of rock balancing for them, gave it to them. So I was working with these folks and getting to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was offered to be picked up at the airport in Rome on my flight over.
Wow. Good.
And my hostess asked me if I would be willing to give a talk the night I got there to a group of school teachers about working with kids.
Really? That was great.
So I put together a little presentation, and she translated into Italian.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to stumble in Italian through it. But she ended up talking. We were in this library and setting up some stones and setting up the place.
Mm-hmm.
And she started giving the presentation in Italian. So I was just sitting on the floor unloading the boxes of rocks we had.
Mm-hmm.
And I was joined pretty quickly by 3 or 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, wait a minute. I said, look, there's no language here.
Right.
And they just picked it up and were playing. So there was a cross-culture, cross-language thing that started happening. And so my 10-day trip to Italy, I had an escort.
Wow.
Who knew most of the people that I was going to try to find, and went over to Porto Novo on the Adriatic coast, and spent 3 days there setting up this this exhibit that they were going to do in April.
Right.
So it turned out to be quite a nice thing.
It sounds so great. And, like back in my college days, I think there was a a verse or a saying that music was the universal language of all mankind. So it almost sounds like rock art or rock balancing could be a universal language between mankind, because the kids pick it up so easily. And, they wanted to work with you after they saw you unloading the boxes. So I think this is really great.
It seems like it's universal, and in my estimation, it may be the most primal art form that we've done, because I don't do anything with the rocks. There's no materials, there's no construction method. It's just taking rocks and putting them together in natural states. And so it may have been, one of our earliest ways of expressing art of any sort.
Yep.
And that primal connection may be what I sort of sense about it. I'm
Now,
just guessing that.
will you, like you do them mostly like on the beach or riverbeds? I mean, if some of our viewers wanted to get started, I mean, they basically could just take some rocks and work with them on their kitchen table. I mean,
Yep.
like just small ones, and see how they like it and get used to doing it, and then go to a bigger scale. Have you done others, how do I want to say, like just in parks and stuff like that?
I've done them in many different kind of settings.
Okay.
Like I say, if it's not in a creek bed or a river, lake shore, something like that, where I feel safe leaving, I
Right.
sometimes take them down. I don't, want to cause anybody hurt. And the challenge of doing this, because I want to do it every day,
Right.
and in my journeys, I've had to go to some strange lengths to find some stones. I went to Florida one winter to visit my mother and sister who lived there. And Florida does not have any native rock.
Really?
No, they have limestone in big chunks, but there's no river stones or any of that kind of stuff.
Really?
So what I was challenged to do is I went to a landscaping supply store and asked them if I could borrow some of their rocks for a while. And the woman who owned the store, I showed her my book, and I said, here's what I'm doing, and I went out and had played in their stone field for a bit. And I came back in, and she was amazed. She goes, I've been in the rock business for 50 years. I've never seen anything like this. I said, well, I'm glad you got a chance to see it.
Yeah.
So I left some stuff set up in their stone store. And I've had to do things like that, or just go to find, stones, sources of stones to balance.
Oh, that's great. I just wanted to see if, like pull out a couple of different pictures here to show. Sometimes, like they don't have to be the same size. Now, here's one, stone tipping, December 2010 at Buttermilk Falls State Park. It starts with a large rock. Then there's a small rock in the middle, and then there's appears to be a larger rock on top. And it's fascinating to me how the larger rock can become one and balance perfectly with a smaller rock.
That was the first one of that category I did, and that came from watching, seeing pictures on that Facebook website of other people, and I call that small stone in between the hinge.
Okay.
And that one that you showed, that upper rock was quite hefty. I mean, that's all I could do to get that up, and then you kind of got to get it close
Yeah.
to where it needs to be. And then once it's up there being supported, you can kind of move it around. That was quite a challenge, and it felt really good to do it.
And here's another one. This is in May 2010, and this is 6 Mile Creek. And at 6 Mile Creek, rock took a larger rock and then took another rock, probably about the same size, but it had like a little twist to it. And it appears to be that the twist, or the point of the twist, is balancing on the bottom rock. And again, it's very fascinating.
And that's just a case of finding where those two fit together. And the neat thing that really adds a lot of dramatic flair to this work is because of the rocks have an amorphous shape, and they also have an amorphous density.
Okay.
so that where the center of balance is doesn't look right sometimes.
Okay.
Because one side of it might be a whole lot more dense than the other side. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, often people say you're defying gravity, and I say no, I'm obeying the laws of gravity.
Yeah.
Strictly. I mean, I'm not doing anything that's outside of nature.
Sure. Sure.
And I obey gravity, and I apply the rule of friction,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all it is. Two natural elements and just getting them to fit together.
Sure.
And what I've noticed in my own work and then watching others do this, there definitely is quite a moment of achievement when you feel the rock that you're handling stops moving, and you sense it. I mean, it's not figuring out. You just sort of sense it. It's not moving anymore, and you withdraw your hands. And my hands always pull away like this. And I watch other people do it, and their hands kind of pull away. And I've just come up with the idea that this is, I call this the open receiving grace position.
Yep.
So when I do a rock and I'm sitting like this and I receive, I feel it. It may be all subjective and stuff, but happening, and then there's balance.
Sure. Oh, this is just really, really great. Now, do any of your family, like your granddaughter, is she still working at all with any of the rocks, or?
She doesn't do it as seriously as I
As
do
you
it,
do.
but when I visit her sometimes and we go out, and she's got it down. She knows the practice.
Okay.
It's a sensing thing that you settle. You just settle it until nothing's moving.
Right. Now, when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned that perhaps, in the future, there might be like a group of people coming to the United States, or, getting together to discuss rock balancing and having like a conference.
We gather, and I've been to several. I love to travel to meet other people doing this, and we've gotten together. Like that first trip was to Italy, and that was
Right.
quite extravagant to go over there and partake over there. And through our online connections, I was talking to another guy who was also in Italy, but on a different itinerary than the one I was on. He was seeing other people. And we were both leaving Rome on the same day, so the Rome airport, to fly back to the States. So I made plans to meet him and his wife in a piazza in Rome at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I go there and I'm waiting, with all the stuff that's going on in an open piazza, all sorts of stuff in a big city. And there's no rocks there. So I'm wondering, these 2 or 3 people I'm waiting for. So I'm looking for people who are carrying some rocks or something. I didn't know what to look for.
Sure.
And they were late.
Oh.
And they were late, and they were late. Now, I had a phone that my hostess had given me, a cell phone to carry with me. And I just missed, actually I saw a group of people as I walked up to them, and I got accosted by a man who was wanting some money or something. So I had to deal with him, and the people I was approaching, who I kind of recognized had gone off before I got to them, and I saw them leaving the piazza, so, well, maybe I missed this, but I wasn't even sure if it was them. And then we were all going to meet for dinner at 7 o'clock, so now I had a couple hours to go, and I went up to Villa Borghese, which is this huge park that above Rome on one of the hills. So then I found rocks, and I could do my practice and play, and got to the place we're going to meet. And I called up my hostess on my phone, and she goes, "We've been trying to call you all afternoon." And I said, "Well, it hasn't been ringing."
Yeah.
And it turned out those folks were trying to call me as I was approaching them in the...
Oh, okay.
'Cause I saw one of the women was on a cell phone, so I figured... But I missed them. But they came to dinner. We all had dinner. And it turned out they were taking photographs there.
Oh, all right.
And they showed me. One of them was, I was in it.
Oh, okay.
So they'd taken a picture of me, quite unawares of it was me, and I was quite unawares it was them. But we got together and decided that, and we were going to do a gathering in Flagstaff, Arizona, the following September. So I went to that. I've gathered with people in Montreal, Ottawa. And I've traveled to meet individuals, but these are gatherings with people. And I would love to host a gathering in this area. I mean, the rocks we've got around here are fantastic.
Yeah.
The medium is here for sure.
I mean, like not far from Cat TV Studios, you can go up to the branch up in Brooklyn, which is off from Main Street. You go over and it's off from County Street, and it's just phenomenal. The different rocks that are there, and they've been there for hundreds of years, and it's beautiful. And then, like at the quarry in Dorset, there's a lot of rocks there. In Arlington near the Battenkill. So, Vermont has a plethora of rocks, if you will, even in the fields. I mean, on the way to Burlington, if you go through Rutland, there's some of the fields on the left that have huge rocks, and then they have some smaller rocks. So not only is it the riverbeds, but it's also the fields and, the other areas too.
And I prefer the river rock. And the reason I prefer it is I like the smooth ones, the ones that have been tumbled in the water and lake shores. And some of them that you find in fields have come from rivers, and the glacier pushed them into the, as they uncover.
Right.
But I kind of like the smooth sculptural ones that you get out of riverbeds. I like those the best. But I'll set up anything, as a matter of fact. You want to show that one?
Okay. Which one? This one right here?
This one here.
Oh, this one. Oh, okay. This one is in May 2010. It's alongside the Remington Road in Cayuga Heights?
Cayuga Heights.
Cayuga Heights, New York. Now, look at this one. It's on a rock that appears to be in the water, and there's another rock balanced on top of it. And on top of the middle rock is like a cement block that's balanced on just one of its sides. It's been broken, and one side is longer than the other, and it's just perfectly balanced. How did you come about that one?
Well, I was just looking for something to balance, and then I realized man-made stone works, and I just found that and put it up, and it was quite pleasing to do that. I mean, it looked so odd. And the following year, I came back to that same place, and that same block was broken into two pieces. I had to put it up again in a different.
Oh, do you have that picture by any chance?
No, I don't. That was the next year.
Now, is there another picture that you want to talk about a little bit?
Well, this one here on the back cover.
Okay. This one is Excalibur Minuteman Park in Westboro, Massachusetts, and it's in October of 2010.
And that one is the first one that the photograph really captured me. And it was early in the morning. It was so foggy when I first got down there. I couldn't even see the lake. I couldn't see across the lake. It was all fogged in. I could just see the rocks, and I'm setting them up. And after I'd set up quite a few, I was taking the pictures. And when I didn't see it as I was taking it, but when I looked at the film after, the picture later, the kind of mystical background with the fog and the coming up off the lake, and I just thought of Excalibur, the sword that King Arthur pulls out of the stone, and that looked like that to me.
Yep, that's good. Now, by any chance, did you bring the scrapbook with the kids that you had showed me a couple weeks ago?
I did.
Okay. Let's show our viewers a couple of those, if you...
The book they sent me?
Yes.
I got that.
This is a thank you that a class... Where was the class again?
That was in Cayuga Heights, New York.
Okay. And Rock had gone to visit a classroom.
3- and 4-year-olders.
And they did... This is the thank you book that they sent to him. And thanking him for allowing them to work with the rocks that he had brought. And you can see that they were quite happy and did an excellent thank you to him. And you said that the kids just came right up to you and just started using the rocks?
They were a fun bunch to work with, 3- and 4-year-olders, and there was maybe 10 of them in the classroom. And I brought in a bunch of rocks and set them on the floor, and we started playing. And I kind of figured out from that experience that I could almost use how the kids handled it as kind of a diagnosing where they tended to be.
Mm-hmm.
The artistic ones gathered the rocks in their hand. I could see they were feeling them, and they were, getting a sense of what they were playing with
Sure.
and setting them up. There was a couple kids I'm sure were going to be builders because they were, I'm going to make this work. And there was a couple kids that were going to be athletes because they were throwing them.
Oh, no.
So I mean, they had other things to do with the rocks besides what I was doing, but we all had fun. And then
Good.
at the end of the thing, they all got together and did a song and dance for me, which I captured on a video.
Good. Good.
And they wanted me to come back when they sent me this book. They wanted me, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to get back to that particular classroom. But working with kids was just a real special thing because they're attuned to it and they'll listen.
Oh, yeah.
And when I've brought in bags of rocks into it, I mean canvas bag, a couple of canvas bags I fill with stones and would go into a classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually end up leaving each kid with a rock. They like one. Say, oh, can I have? I say, sure, you can have it. So they're passing them out their own special rock.
Oh, that's great. That's good.
So there's a connection of some sort between stone and people,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess I'm taking advantage of. And maybe there's a stone energy in there. I mean, some of the people I work with have this idea that these stones have been around absorbing human energy for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they can impart some of that to us as we handle them.
And they're giving back almost.
Giving back, yeah. I guess. I mean, I'm not, researching that to see if there's any evidence of that. But I do know that handling rocks it's very calming.
Mm-hmm.
Just the conducting this work.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of my first beginning to do this, and there was a woman off to the side I knew was taking pictures, and mostly of the waterfowl that was around there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finished, I went over and was talking to her, and she goes, "It only took me about 5 minutes of watching you to realize why you do this."
Mm-hmm.
It was soothing just to watch.
Yeah. That's good.
So there was that element of it.
Yep.
And doing it in one of the things I learned, natural things I learned, conducting this practice near water,
Mm-hmm.
is that birds take these things for perches.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when birds approach a water area, they'll alight up on something high and get
Right.
an idea of what's going on down there before they come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this happen a few times. I'd love to capture it on a film.
Mm-hmm.
Where a bird has come in and lat down and the thing is collapsed. And he's startles
Yeah,
and flies
really.
off.
Yeah.
And I kind of see the look on their face. I mean, it's a startled look. They just, all of a sudden, whatever they perched on is gone,
Mm-hmm.
and they fly off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to capture that on camera someday.
That would be good.
Yeah.
So perhaps you can come to Cat TV and take a camera course, and then you can utilize one of our cameras and you could find this. So,
Yeah.
well, I really appreciate your coming in today to, talk and let everybody know about stone balancing or rock tipping, if you will. Something I just found on the internet. I was looking at different things, and one quote that came to mind was that only in nature is there balance, and it's perfect balance, and sometimes it takes a while to achieve it, but in most cases, it really happens, and it is perfect. So now what we're going to do, Rock has brought us some other pictures that we're going to show you, and we're also going to show you the DVD. And for that, I'm really grateful that you've tuned in to watch our segment on stone balancing and rock tipping. I'd like to thank Rock again for coming to the studios today to share this with us. It's been great. And this is my second time that I've spoken with him, so the first time was like awesome, and it was just like mind-boggling, and this time it makes total sense about the balancing and how great it can be. So thank you again for coming in.
You're welcome. Do you have just a moment for a little bit of a disclaimer?
Sure.
since I moved to Bennington, which is a little more than a year now, one of the places I conduct a lot of this is in the Roaring Branch, between the bridge and Woodford.
Okay.
And when I've gone back to see places where I've done work, I see evidence that other people are playing with stones too and setting up piles of rocks. So if you see some of this stuff, doesn't necessarily mean it's mine. So there's other people doing it, and I welcome anybody to join.
Sure. And maybe we could even get our own little club going here where people can, get together and share ideas.
I think it's happening.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and I really appreciate your coming by. So everyone, thank you again for tuning in, and stay tuned for more segments of Mindful Health Alternatives. Bye now.
I first came across the balancing of rocks about a year ago. It was in the summer, and I was walking on the beach with my granddaughter, who was about 5 years old at the time, and we came across about a dozen of these incredibly balanced rocks, and they were sizable, the size of a human head to maybe the size of a torso. It was the first feeling I got was awe. It was like, how in the world did this happen? It just seemed amazing.
I want to go where the buildings end, where the earth is cut by rivers that curve and bend, far past the ragged earth where steel and iron stand, out in the endless wild where I'm free to roam the land. Don't be afraid when I'm alone. I'll be okay when I find a home. Just know that wherever you are, I'll always be somewhere near and far. Be somewhere near and far. To be free means to live happily in this life that's something strange to me. So I move ahead into clear air and space, 'cause it's just that I keep losing in this place.
people have, I mean, we seem to have a natural affinity to stone. That, cross culture, historically, there's evidence of stone works being set up and used to signify man's presence. And I wonder if we also have a natural affinity to balance. If that's maybe a thing in nature, it draws us to try to achieve balance. I mean, without even thinking about it, we all have to negotiate balance in order to walk. And I had an experience about 6 years ago. I'd suffered a brain aneurysm and had to have neurosurgery. And as a result of that, I had to do physical therapy afterwards to learn how to walk again. And it was pretty incredible learning how to walk and realizing I had to focus on it. I mean, I was labeled a fall risk because I had an open incision that had been closed up and was healing. And if I fell and hit that, I'd be in trouble. So they called me a fall risk. And I had to learn how to walk with that going on. And I realized how focused, babies have to be when they're learning to walk. Infants have to be when they're learning to walk. Because when you lose focus, you're on your butt. So learning that as an adult made me aware of how much we have to focus on balancing ourselves as we're learning how to walk. And maybe I'm just conjecturing this, that maybe that's what draws us to balancing things, is that it's part of our psyche is to stay in balance. I've balanced rocks in Oakland, California, Half Moon Bay, California, Media, Pennsylvania, Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, Martha's Vineyard, Hudson, Massachusetts. So there's little things, rocks got assembled into an upright position in those places. And from what I see, when I leave a few sculptures and walk away and come back the next day, and I can see other people have attempted to mimic that. So maybe I've fallen upon something that's spreading. So it's a pleasing thing to be able to do. And I noticed when I do it and when other people do it, something about how the hands move into this position when a lot of times it's just natural. When you let go, you sort of open up. And that's kind of I regard this position as an open receiving grace position. So maybe that's what's happening after you balance a rock. I think it's a kind of a thing, my experience of doing it, it's calming, it's centering, it's focusing, and it's attractive. I mean, people, that's what my experience is. People are attracted to it. When they see me doing it and they come over, and there's a force, I guess you'd call it, that makes people want to try it. To balance a rock, I look for an indentation that will receive, could be something like that, a little indentation where I can sit the point. And it could be large size, it could be almost, you can't see. Here's an example here. There's just a little bit of a crease in that, which is going to hold this. So there's not much, but it doesn't take much, just enough of a little indentation to hold the rounded end of a rock, like that. I consider my granddaughter my muse. She was with me when I first saw it, and she was with me when the first time I tried it. And I keep her in mind when I'm doing it. There's something happening that's, in the background. I'm playing with a physical thing, a piece of rock, and I believe obeying the laws of nature. I mean, gravity and friction and all those things are coming into play. I'm not thinking about them, I'm just feeling it. But, many, many people, as they come upon it, accuse me of using glue or metal rods or magic or something like that, which, you know, is kind of the feeling I got when I first started this. It was like, what's the trick? And there is no trick. It's just, you know, getting natural things all lined up and they're happening. I had a shop for a while, a shop that I restored antique furniture and repaired it. And one of my diversions, a friend of mine would come in and we would play chess. And we played 30-minute games. We each had 30 minutes on a clock to play a game in. And we set up our table and started a game. And there was a witness, another friend of mine, watching our game. And after we got done with the game, there was a bill there marked paid and a check sitting on top of it. And I asked the guy I said, where did this come from? He says, oh, you got up and went up in the loft and got the guy his chair and gave it to him and took the check. And I said, I did? I mean, I was so focused on the game, I wasn't even aware that I actually did some business in between moves. And I suppose balancing rocks is that focus too. Small thoughts might intrude, but they're quickly, I don't latch on to them and go with them. They just wash away. And I guess that's why it's called meditative. I'm not attaching to thoughts. And I call it work because I engage with it every day. Could be play, but I'm retired. I call it my job. Is to go out and balance the world one rock at a time. That's a quote from my brother. He said, I'm bringing order and discipline to the world one rock at a time. The rocks are the teachers. And just handling them, I learn things. And one of the first lesson I believe I learned was that everything that we pile up will topple over. And that was a settling thing. And I took that to, yeah, even me. I mean, we're all going to topple over someday. Everything. The first time I did 4, and they were sizable. They were boulders of this size, head-sized, and they were heavy. And it was an early Sunday morning, probably before 7. Right next to a road, there was a bank of rocks right next to a road that I could set them up, and if they toppled over, they wouldn't go in the road and they wouldn't go on anything else. So they felt safe to set them up like that. And as I was sitting there working with the 4th one on the pile, a police car pulled up and rolled down his window, and the officer asked me, what was I doing? I said, I'm balancing rocks. He goes, yeah, why? It's because I like to. Well, why? I said, because I like to take pictures. Well, why? I said, well, it's just what I like to do. And there's no reason. It's just I like it, I'm doing it. And as we got that far into the conversation of asking me why I was doing what I was doing, the top one achieved balance, and I went like this. And he just opened, he said, wow, how did you do that? I said, well, you were watching me, you saw how I did it. And then he backed up a little bit so he could see the other ones. There was 4 or 5 around there that I had already set up. And he backed up and said, wow, that's really amazing. I said, yeah, it is. That's why I like doing it, just so I could amaze you. And then he kind of looked at me and said, with a quizzical look on his face, he said, you're not going to steal those rocks, are you? And I looked at him, I said, I was on my bicycle. I said, do you think I'm going to carry this kind of a boulder off on my bicycle? I said, I don't think so. People balancing rocks aren't fighting with them anyway. And if it works for me. It's kept me out of trouble. And it feels like something that I am called to, I feel engaged with, and can see myself doing for a long time. So I guess, there's something primal, perhaps, of playing with stones.
Life means more when you take away the strain of meaningless things that cloud up your heart and brain.
We might... What in the world chipmunk. Did you catch that?